15.2 is simplifying radicals, and we're going to be using something here that we call the product rule. And the product rule just says if I'm taking the square root of a times b, I can break that down into the square root of a times the square root of b. So the directions here say let's use the product rule to simplify. So again, just a quick reminder, if I'm, say, trying to take something like the square root of 49, the answer is going to be 7, and the reason being is that 7 times 7 is 49. So again, I'm grouping in terms of 2. I'm trying to get pairs of the same number. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to take my number 20, and I'm going to break it down. Now, when you break down the number 20, there's multiple ways you can do it. You can decide 2 and 10. You can go 4 and 5. The idea is you want to break it down completely. So suppose we decide to go 2 and 10. Now, I know I can't break down 2, but we can break down 10 into 2 and 5. Since the square root means I'm grouping in terms of 2, or I'm getting pairs, I want you to notice that we have a pair of the number 2. So the square root of 20 is going to be 2. Since there's only one 5, the 5 stays inside the square root because there's not a pair of them. Okay? I'm going to do the same thing for the next problem. We're going to go 44. So immediately I think 4 and 11. I can't break down 11, but I can break down 4 into 2 and 2. Again, now I notice we have a pair of 2s. So that number is going to come outside because there's a pair of them. The number that has to remain inside is the 11. Okay. So continuing here, 50, I might think about that as 5 and 10. Okay. I can't break down 5. 10 I can break down into 2 and 5. Again, I want you to notice we have a pair of the number 5s. So the number 5 is going to come outside. That one is not paired up, so it needs to remain inside. Okay. 28. When I think of 28, I tend to think of 4 and 7. 4 is 2 and 2. So the 2 comes outside. The 7 remains inside. Okay. So let's take a look at the next problem here. I have the square root of 21. So 21 is 3 and 7. But I can't break down 3, and I can't break down 7, and they don't have any pairs. So the square root of 21 is already simplified. I can't break that down anymore. Even though we can break it down into 3 and 7, we don't have pairs, so we just leave it alone. Okay. So like a number for 98. Again, I'm going to divide it by 2 because it's even. So that's 2 and that's 49. Well, that's 7 and 7. So the number that we have a pair of is the number 7. The number that I don't have a pair of is the number 2. That number stays inside. Okay. Now, I want you to notice the next 4 problems that I have here. I already have a number out in front. That number out in front is being multiplied. So the way I read this problem here, this is telling me 3 times the square root of 25. So this is 3 times, well, I already know the square root of 25 is 5, and 3 times 5 is going to give me 15. Okay. Now, the next one here is 7 times the square root of 63. Well, I'm going to go ahead and write my 7 because that's the number that I have in front. Okay. I'm going to break down the square root of 63. Well, 63 is 7 times 9, and 9 is 3 times 3. So the number that I have a pair of is 3. That number is going to come outside. The number that I don't have a pair of was that 7, so that 7 is going to stay inside. Now when I multiply, 7 times 3 is going to give me 21 with the square root of 7. Okay. Same thing for the next one here. It says negative 5 square root of 27. So again, the number that I already have on the outside is a negative 5. 27 is 3 times 9. 9 is 3 times 3. Again, I'm grouping in terms of 2. I'm getting pairs. Well, look, we have a pair of the number 3. This 3 here wasn't paired up, so it stays inside. Negative 5 times 3 is going to give me a negative 15. And we still have the square root of 3. Okay. And the last one here, negative 6 times the square root of 65. Okay. So when I think about that as a negative 75, I'm going to break down my number 75 into 25 times 3, like 75 cents. 25 is 5 times 5. So again, I have a pair of the number 5s. And the number that I still have left over is 3. So now negative 6 times 5 is a negative 30. Square root of 3. Okay. All right, let me scroll down a little bit further. Okay, now we have the quotient rule. So again, I'm going to do the same thing. I have the square root of a fraction. I'm going to think about the square root of the top. I'm going to think about the square root of the bottom. When I look at the first problem that I have here, it's the square root of 8 over 25. Okay. Immediately, I already know the square root of 25 is 5. When I think of 8, 8 is 2 times 4, and 4 is 2 times 2. So that number is going to come outside on the top, and that 2 is going to stay inside on the top. Okay. Let's try this one here. Immediately, I see the square root of 16 on the bottom. I already know the square root of 16 is 4. So when I think of 63, I think of 7 times 9, and 9 is 3 times 3. So the 3 is going to come outside, and the 7 is going to stay on the inside. Okay. All right. Continuing here, I see the square root of 121. Well, that's 11. So again, 27 is 3 times 9. 9 is 3 times 3. So I have a pair of 3's here. Oops, sorry. But, excuse me, that 3 needs to come back on the inside. Okay. Let's take a look here. Square root of 36 is 6. And 11. 11 is a prime number, so I can't break the number 11 down. So that's just going to stay as it is, the square root of 11 over 6. Okay. All right. This one here, again, I want you to notice the first thing I see is a negative. I'm going to write that negative out. Okay. The square root of 144 is 12. Now, if you notice, we already did the square root of 27 right here. So we had that 3 come out. We had this 3 stay on the inside. Okay. Now, if we can reduce these numbers, we'll go ahead and reduce them. Okay. So I'm going to write my negative. 3 goes into 3 once, but I still have that square root of 3 right here. And 3 goes into 12 4 times. And so my answer is just the negative square root of 3 over 4. Okay. All right. Again, the first thing I notice about this problem, I have a negative, so I'm going to write that down. Square root of 121 is 11. So 84, I know we can at least divide it by 2. That's 42. Okay. And 42 I know is 6 and 7. Excuse me. Okay. And 6 I can break down into 2 and 3. So the numbers that I'm looking at here are these here at the ends. So the first thing I notice is the number that I have a pair of is the number 2. Okay. These numbers here are not paired up, so I got to multiply them together, and that's going to stay on the inside. Okay. All right. So now the next thing I notice about the next couple of problems that I have here, I have the square root of x to the 7th. So we said earlier that if I had something like, say, the square root of x to the 8th, I was taking, let me fix that, it's a little messy. Come back here. Square root of x to the 8th, we said we're going to take the number 8, we're going to divide it by 2 because we're getting pairs, and our answer would have just been x to the 4th, right? Okay, I'm going to do the same thing here. I'm going to take my number 7, and I'm going to divide it by 2. So I know 2 goes into 7 3 times. That's going to give me 6 with a remainder of 1, okay? So now, when I think about that, how am I going to write my answer? The number 3 is going to be the exponent on the x on the outside. However remainders I have is going to be the exponent of the x on the inside. Okay. I'll do the same thing with 13. And again, I'm going to take my number 13. I'm going to divide it by 2. That's going to go in 6 times. That'll give me 12 with a remainder of 1. So again, this is going to tell me my answer is going to be x to the 6 And that 1 is the number of x's that I have on the inside. And again, the reason why this works, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. The reason that this works is, remember, we're grouping in terms of 2. So look, that's 1 pair, 2 pairs, 3 pairs, 4 pairs, 5 pairs, 6 pairs. So here's my 6 with 1 left over, and that's why that 1 is right there. Okay. All right, so let's see if we can finish these problems up here. So now I have the square root of 36a to the third. Well, I know the square root of 36 is 6. If I take my exponent of 3 and I divide it by 2, that goes in, oops, sorry. Let me erase that. Here we go. Okay. So if I take my exponent of 3 and divide it by 2, that goes in once. So there's 1a here with a remainder of 1, so I still have an a on the inside. Okay. I'll do the same thing for the next one. I know the square root of 81 is 9. If I take my exponent of 5 and divide it by 2, I have 2, so that's b squared, because I'm dealing with b, with 1b left on the inside, because my remainder is 1. Okay. All right, let's try the next one. So here I have the square root of 96 x to the fourth. Okay, so 96. Let me at least divide that by 3. Guess I can go by 3, and that's 32. And then 32, I'm going to start breaking that up. Okay. You know what? I'm going to write it on the side so I have more room. Okay. Let's come back over here. All right, so we have the number 96. If I divide it by 3, it's 32. Now that's 2 and 16. And I can say, well, that's 2 and 8. That's 2 and 4. And that's 2 and 2. Now remember, we're getting pairs. So look, that's 1 pair of 2's. That's 2 pair of 2's. So 2 times 2 is going to give me 4. That's the number that's going to come outside. These numbers here were not paired up, so that 6 is going to stay on the inside. Okay. And then finally, the square root of x to the fourth is just x squared. Okay. All right, next one I have here is 40y to the 10th. So let me erase some of this mess here. And let's come back. Okay, 40. So 40 I might think of as 4 and 10. 4 is 2 and 2. 10 is 2 and 5. There's the pair, so we have 2. These numbers are not paired, so they go back on the inside. That's 10. If I take y to the 10th, if I take that exponent 10 and divide it by 2, that should give me y to the 5th. Okay. All right, so the next one I have here, again, is a fraction. So I'm going to go ahead and do the bottom part first. I know the square root of m squared is just m. Again, over here on the side, here's my number 12. That's 2 and 6. That's 2 and 3. So the 2 will come out, the 3 will stay in. Okay. For this one here, let's see, the square root of y to the 10th, so y to the 5th. The square root of 9 is 3. Now, I only have one x in there. Since it's only 1, I know it can't come out, and that x has to stay on the inside. Okay. All right. So now I have 175. So I'm going to take 175. I know I can at least divide it by 5. That should give me 30. Is that 37? Let me double check. 175 divided by 5 is 35, sorry. Oops. Let's come back over here. Let me erase that. Okay, come back. Here we go. 35. Yeah, that's right. Okay. Now 35 is 5 and 7. So I have a 5 coming outside. We got a 7 going inside. Okay. Okay, and 24. So 24 I know is 4 times 6. That's 2 times 2. That's 3 times 2. So the pair that I have is the number 2. Okay. These numbers are not paired up, so they're going to go back inside. That's a 6. Okay. If I take my exponent of 7 and I divide it by 2, that's going to go in 3 times with a remainder of 1. So I'm going to have an m to the third, and there should be one m back on the inside. Okay. So that right there, y'all, is 15.2.